Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome to the barren wasteland that is the Ashes of the Empire Desert. In today's episode, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be building ourselves a tank. Now, there's no real reason for me to be doing this, but for some reason, I just really wanted to build a tank. I haven't built a tank vehicle, or a land vehicle rather, in a very long time, since a stream I did maybe 2 months ago, in which we built a tiny little craft that fired dumb missiles. It was terrible, but it was absolutely adorable. So today, we're going to build a more standardized tank. It's going to have one major weapon, which will be a single advanced cannon, which will be built into the hull itself, and it may have some secondary weapons, perhaps some of the simple weapons, like the small laser, the autocannon, and stuff like that. Honestly, I do adore the autocannon, especially since the massive buff to the simple weapons, so using it on something like this, which is going to have quite a low volume. At the moment, the maximum volume I'm really looking at is maybe 6,000. Something like this can be pretty good. So I'll go ahead, make the very base of the vehicle, and we will be right back. This is being done in my spare time, so don't expect anything too fancy. And expect me to randomly drop things onto the floor instantly. Oh look, 6 damage. Okay, so for a bit of reference, here are some of the main craft used in the old Ashes of the Empire campaign. We have the Abaddon, the Bloodletter, the Khan, the Cultist, and the Scarab. So all of these fulfill different roles throughout the campaign, and apparently they don't start off with the proper fuel because I'm draining it at the moment, but either way they were all pretty darn good. Today we're going to be focusing more on building something like a much updated version of the Khan. This was the very first tank we built, it didn't have the missiles to begin with, and it really did serve its purpose. It has decently heavy armor, it has a single RTG powering the entire thing, and it has one, I think, 200mm advanced cannon. Yep, a gauge of 200mm, which just shot AP rounds, which easily dealt with the initial first volleys. So I would like to build something like that, but with a better building level, because I've definitely got better over the last year especially, and you can even tell that with the designs here. This was the first, but then things like the Cultist, a very light craft, can actually kill that, and it's like half the cost, because it's just built significantly better. The Bloodletter, as interesting as it's acting right now with certain changes to the game, would devastate pretty much anything with its dual cannon. And then we have things like the Abaddon, which could take an absolute beating and just carry on happily. The Scarab was overpowered because it used the whole dual vehicle method, combining two vehicles to get around the volume limit. So today, let's update the Khan. Let's build ourselves a brand new tank. Now, one of the very first things we need to figure out is how are we going to make this thing move, and it's actually quite important as it's going to shape the overall craft incredibly quickly. So the first, more obvious answer is wheels. Why don't you just use wheels, Lathrix? Wheels are good, wheels work, and it certainly makes a tank look like a tank, or at least a ground vehicle. So, yeah, that is the obvious choice. However, I am not a massive fan of wheels. First of all, only 20 wheels now actually work. As you can see here, this wheel is not being used because there is a limit of 20 wheels per vehicle, and more appropriate drive wheels have been selected. Thankfully, this has, for the most part, picked the correct wheels, and it's giving them power. If we have more power, it will select a little bit better. But either way, it's working just fine, as you can see. We're going over all these things with no help except for moving forwards with the most basic of AI. And I think we're going at about 18 meters per second. Our volume is still a very low 500, so this is a good option. But I think I'm going to do is I'm only going to use wheels for backwards and forwards. When it comes to turning and everything else, we're going to be using internal dedicated header blade spinners connected to control blocks, which will then mean every time the vehicle wants to turn left or right, it will activate one of the rotor blades. The reason is, I just do not like the wheel turning. The wheel turning in this game can be a little bit unpredictable to say the least, and using the internal blades is how I got things like the Cultist to go at around about 130 meters per second and not simply fly off the ground constantly, which it did the very first time I tried to build it. So I think we should have enough space for that. Now, when it comes to the engines, we're not going to use RTG, and the reasoning is kind of silly, but I want exhausts. I want to see smoke bellowing out of the back of the craft. So we are going to use 2 small fuel engines, which will be located here and probably here as well, so just mirrored. The main turret itself will be here at the back and will take up most of the top of the hull, and then if we have space for some smaller guns, they will probably just stick out the side here and here, or maybe at the front, depending on what we go with. Missiles would be the easier option there, of course. Turret test number 1. So this is a really basic turret. It's only 250mm in its shell gauge. I think it's going to do okay. It's using a rather old-fashioned shell, one of the heat shells that I actually used in the campaign itself. Okay, one good shot actually went straight through, but yeah. Before the update to the armor values and heat itself, that would have been a lot faster, but either way, that was very effective. And it's only stopped firing because it's actually killed the old Khan tank. So, yeah, I am happy enough with that. It can keep up that fire rate for about a minute, so it's not bad. It will certainly kill a lot of badly armored designs. And that's only the main weapon. And once again, it's small and it's fairly cheap. Although I do need to remove those 2 autoloaders on the top, which I simply forgot to remove in the first place. Did that kill it? Oh, okay, that made me jump. Yes, it did. Okay, so I've been messing around with using the cannon with no cooldown, so that's the natural cooldown from the turret itself. And honestly, I'm surprised by how well the heat shells still do. I've even tested out against a few enemies, which are practically heat resistant in how their armor is built, and they still do okay. So for a rather small turret that only costs like 4,000 by itself, I'm pretty happy with that. The gun has been shrunk down and the fire rate is now far more stable. No. Okay, the Abaddon was tested so many times in the campaign, and honestly took us to the very end of the campaign with its heavy armor and layered armor pretty much everywhere. So yeah, I think heat shells are doing just fine. It should also have shields, but I can't see the shield online right now. Oh no, it definitely had the shield. That didn't kill it that time, did it? No, it did. AI dead again. Huh, maybe it's just weak against heat and it's AI. Either way, happy with that. Let's test it out against a campaign design, though, just to make sure that the Abaddon just hasn't aged really badly. Could you have spawned any further away? Okay, so this is the Scarab. This was quite a nuisance during the campaign. It's quite heavily armored, it has a very large cannon on it, and it even has missiles. It was one of the more difficult things to kill, and was actually a massive inspiration for the Abaddon itself, and this is the current version, which is currently in the campaign. I'm not sure if there is a new version, if this version is different, but either way, let's just test it out versus the craft I just built. Meet the Scarab. Okay then, let's see if these work. I also realised how silly it was for me to be surprised with these fights, considering heat literally stands for high explosive anti-tank. You know, tank, the thing we're fighting. It really does make a lot of sense, the clue's in the name. Okay, let's see. Well, there goes its ammo supply, I imagine. Or something, anyway. Something went up. Oh, the shields have gone down. Oh, no, shield's still up. What did it hit? Something nastily detonated. And again. Well, it's finding the Scarab more difficult, but I would expect that. The Scarab does have more armor. Is it dead? No, it's not. Although it has flipped. I don't quite know what's gone on there, honestly. Either way, considering the Scarab is what I would consider a heavy tank in the Ashes of the Empire campaign for such a cheap, medium-sized turret, yeah, that's fine. I will stick with these shells. They're fun, they're explosive, and apparently they cause things to flip. I don't know why they do that, but I'm okay with it. Okay, that took another 30 seconds, but it did eventually kill, and it seems like the reason is there's a few air pockets and then another layer of armor with the AI. The Abaddon didn't have air pockets, which are the counter to heat. Still really happy though, like, I am amazed by how well these shells do. They're going to be really brutal against medium tanks. So, let's actually give it some shape. At the moment it's just a block. Well, there's the main blocks in place before we do the outer armor. There's a little bit of space at the back here next to these absolutely tiny engines, which I could easily heavily armor up, which will be the placement for the AI. The ammo will go in the front, which seems really odd, but it just kind of has worked out that way. That can also be heavily armored from both sides. And then if we do add a secondary weapon, which I really want to, we do have a lot of space to cut into this block here and then add that. The choices really are either a very small advanced cannon minigun, or perhaps even a flak gun, a missile system, most likely an anti-missile system using the missile interceptors, or any variety of simple weapons. Now, I do really want to use the autocannons. The problem is, these require a special type of turret, which is the 2-axis turret, not the regular, because sadly, these have almost no firing arc, so they have to point directly at the target to really do any damage. Same with the laser, so that would be a little bit more difficult to do. If we do that, we will have to dedicate more of an area. So we could cut in like this, then have the 2-axis turret somewhere here, a little bit of armor on the back, weapons on the front. That way it can pretty much turn all in this arc without any hindrance, but not able to turn back on itself, which of course we can add firing restraints for anyway. Building small is oddly difficult. I do find that building larger designs is far easier, so for people who do specialize in building tanks, I have a lot of respect for you. I am not one of those people who do this particularly easily. Although I am happy with this very basic design so far. Maybe I'll build more complex tanks in the future if people are interested in this type of building. A couple of small rotor blades have been added, and I've added a couple of turning wheels just to see how they handle with quite a heavy tank. And even though it is sliding me along, yep, that is really quite graceful. That was really smooth, actually. Try that again.
On my way.
Well, I am very happily surprised by that. And can I... No, stop crushing. I am your master. I am your creator. You don't get to kill me.
Resuming control.
I've turned off the weapon just for now, just so we can see how this would work. This is with the very default settings. Yeah, we get very close, then we sort of circle around it. That's exactly what you'd expect from the default land AI. That's actually not too bad, honestly. I mean, this thing could be a bit of a brawler for a cheaper tank. It is actually very cheap right now. It's currently about a third of the cost of the Abaddon. So that could be something we do. But I think maybe a little bit further out. The cannon shells move at around about 600 meters per second, so there's no real issue there in terms of medium range.
Taking control.
Yeah, that thing throws mines. Can't actually turn the turret properly, though. It was a weird stream. I think alcohol may have been had. Hello! Oh, moving! That was surprising. That fight was actually more to figure out if the layered armor I've added is worth it, and definitely so. One starter vehicle versus another, and surprisingly, the unfinished one wins. Which is actually kind of sad, because I adore the cornflakes. They're delicious. Oh, that is beautiful. Did they destroy the barrel? Yep, they have destroyed the gun's barrel. Still going, though. Only 2 repair bots on a side note. Harder to aim with half the barrel still missing. Now, here's where it's going to struggle. Even with a proper detection system, with such slow shells, this is where issues may arise. So I really do think we need a secondary weapon. Although, it has now proven itself to be a good all-round weapon. It's not going to excel in many situations, but it's going to do decently in a lot. Plus, when it killed those 3 Seekers in a row, that was a thing of beauty. Okay, enough random testing against my other designs. Let's actually make this thing look decent. Oh, something just went. Oh, sorry, I have 3 repair bots. I have one next to the turret as well. Yep, and now it's a flying squirrel issue with this thing going round. Short-range missiles would definitely work, but up the volume. Right now, the vehicle is legal to use in the Ashes of the Empire campaign, because that has a maximum volume of 2,000, I believe. I will look that up in a second in case I'm wrong. At the moment, we're 1,700. Adding a proper extra weapon system would put this over the edge. So it is definitely a larger tank in terms of maximum volume, but it's still very cheap. So, as I've been building this, 2 things have occurred to me. Well, now 3 things, because apparently that's going to go through my poor character's head. Well, anyway, 2 things have occurred to me. First of all, this design looks scarily like other tanks I've built in the past, which means I need some real practice trying to build purposefully a little bit different. Things like asymmetric turret caps, not using this type of armoring system, building a lot lower to the ground. I've always noticed I build a bit too chunky in the middle like that, and just a lot of other things aesthetically. The second thing is that I don't think I've really added too much unique to this craft, but at least it's definitely better than the older designs. I feel like I've done pretty much the same, but from experience of the recent Nita campaign and just from experience in general, the armor is much better placed, the weapon itself is far more effective for its cost, and I'm still happy enough with it. So we're getting close to the end now. This video was basically recorded during a 30-minute break I was meant to be having as a break, but I just figured to myself, what if we just go ahead and build a tank? It's been a while. So if you have enjoyed it, please tell me, because I would like to do one of these in a more serious way, just me practicing building and trying to build something a bit more unique. I will most likely add time lapses and stuff next time when there's more footage, because right now there just isn't really enough footage for that. Now, shall we go with black and red is a good question. I think it would look a little bit generic for our current forces, but it would definitely blend the heavy armor a little bit. I'm not a fan of how heavy armor looks. I'll probably use that a lot less in the future. Be right back once I've decided on a paint scheme. Well, at least it actually blends in a bit better now, so yeah, I quite like this sandy brown colour. It will need some more complementary colours and a bit more touching up, but I'm actually pretty happy with how this tank looks. It looks very simple, but that was the original plan. The front looks a little bit funky, and the turret cap could be a little bit more on the traditional side, but yeah, I am definitely happy with this. And it's still in the legal limits of the Ashes of the Empire campaign, coming in at 1,979 volume, and it's only costing me 18,000 resource. making it still very, very cheap. Now, it isn't quite what I originally intended. It isn't as light as I originally wanted it to be because, well, apparently I just default to building things like this, and the weapon isn't quite the style I wanted, but it's working really well. So we're going to have one final test against a Scarab, a live Scarab, to see if this thing can hold its own. If it does lose, I'm okay with that. The Scarab has shields, and it is considered one of the more difficult designs in the campaign. This is a medium tank, which doesn't cost all that much, and it's medium in terms of the cost and not much else, really. Even the turret itself is tiny. So, I'll be right back. Really need to stop saying be right back when I'm doing a video which will be edited and not a live stream. Okay, Scarab, go! Okay, a little bit unfair, the Scarab facing the wrong way to begin the fight. Oh, nasty hit there by the cannon. Okay, return fire hitting the front, that's where the ammo is. Now those are 500mm shells, I believe. Oh, nasty hit again. And the sustainability of the new tank is what won there. The Scarab simply ran out of ammo and couldn't fire. The missiles and the shells weren't able to break most of the armor, and yep, the new tank is looking just fine. But again, not really the fairest of starts. How about you fight the Abaddon? 1v1. I have no idea who I'm actually rooting for here, honestly. The new tank has definitely been built better. It's just a product of more experience that even a bad builder like I can slowly get better over time. The Abaddon is with much less experience, but at the same time, it's over 40,000 resources. This tank is under 20. It's a bit of a mismatch there. This is made out of essentially pure heavy armor. This has 2 layers of heavy armor, one which is the cap, and then one surrounding the turret itself, just to make sure that's the last thing which explodes. I really do think it's going to come down to whoever can knock out the other one's AI faster. This one definitely has the more vulnerable AI, and this is using heat shells, although so is this. So at the same time, we're also testing how good I am at building around things like heat and hesh. Whoever wins, I think I'm happy enough. Let's make sure, yeah, I'm not actually on one of the vehicles, so I don't get killed instantly. Begin. Oh, God. Oh, I'm so glad I've got better at building. Yep. Yep, you just... Are you at least more defended from the side? I need to know. Oh, Abaddon, you were so good in the campaign. Those shells are brutal. Okay, well, with that, I'm afraid I am all out of time for today's episode. I've accidentally made a tank destroyer. So if you have enjoyed the video, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths and random videos like this are something you would like to see in the future. I do want to build up more tanks. I would like a small ground force, which I can always look back on, and I think this is an excellent start. The medium tank, the tank destroyer, still needs a name, and very kind of brown. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. If I do more videos like this, there will be higher production quality. This is what I do in a break. Goodbye.